Hello and good evening, and welcome to this meeting of the Planning and Development Council of the Town of Oakville. Madam Clerk, we have no regrets for this meeting. Council, do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest? Madam Clerk, I see none. Council, we need confirmation of the minutes of the previous Planning and Development Council meeting. A mover and seconder, Councillor Dudek and Councillor Lischina.
There's none.
There's none?
Yes, there's none.
Oh yeah, okay. I start reading the script here and away we go. Well, let's jump ahead to the advisory committee minutes. We need a mover and seconder to receive the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee minutes from its meeting of April 22nd. Councillor Giddings, Councillor McNeese, thank you for that. Any objection? There being none, and that is adopted. So, Councillor, you have two consent items. Will I have a motion to accept them as presented, or are there questions or other matters to do? I see a whole bunch of hands. Councillor O'Meara, you're first.
Just happy to move them if there's no other questions.
Thank you. Let's see what's happened. Anybody got anything? We need a seconder if that's the path we're following. Councillor Elger, thank you for that. And is there an objection? Well, then we've reached agreement on that, and the consent items are adopted. You have a confidential consent item, and I would ask you to move that in public. Councillor Longo, thank you. I need a seconder. Councillor Knoll, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that is adopted. And that brings us to discussion item number 1, the 2025 Heritage Grant Program recommendations. We have a presentation if you require it, Council. Otherwise, we need you to pass a motion to approve the Heritage Grant Program recommendations from the Heritage Committee. Looking for hands. Councillor Lischina, you're moving it? Councillor Adams, you're seconding it. All right, then. Is there any objection? There's no objection, so that's adopted. Thank you. Now we have a presentation, 8.2, the Economic Development Plan 2025 to 2029. And we have a presentation by Milan Bowie and Deloitte. And Milan, if you'd like to start off, we are all yours.
Wonderful, thank you. Through you, Mayor Burton, good evening to Mayor and members of Planning and Development Council. It's a pleasure to be before you this evening to bring forward the final economic development plan for the 2025 to 2029 period. My name is Milan Bowie, and I'm a Senior Economic Development Officer in the town's Economic Development Department and the project manager for the new 5-year plan. I'll provide a brief introduction and then turn it over to Sarah Lewis from Deloitte, who will present our findings, how the plan came to fruition, and the 3 strategic directions that will serve as our roadmap for the next 5 years. In June 2024, we presented the draft strategic directions to Planning and Development Council for endorsement, at which time we had completed the market research and analysis phase that included a background review, situational analysis, economic profile, economic forecasting, and a competitive analysis that included an industry, sector, and employment analysis, real estate market analysis, talent and workforce analysis, and investment readiness assessment. We had also initiated and completed the first round of engagement and visioning, which included a robust group of interested parties. Following the endorsement from Planning and Development Council, staff worked with Deloitte to create a 2-page summary document and public engagement survey to gather additional input to help shape the final strategic directions that are before you today. Staff also presented the draft strategic directions to the Oakville Chamber of Commerce Government Relations Committee. In September 2024, a report titled Updates on Service Delivery Post-Bill 23 was presented and adopted by Regional Council. The report included an update on economic development services delivered by the region, noting that based on a review that was conducted with Oakville and the 3 other local municipalities, it was determined that economic development services would be most effective in serving the interests of the business community if delivered through one organization in each municipality. As a result, economic development services, except for the Halton Region Small Business Center, ceased as of January 1st, 2025. Through this change, the region will no longer be a member or make contributions to investment attraction agency Toronto Global after the current agreement ends in September 2025, or the town's Brownfield Community Improvement Plan program. To support the download of functions from the region, our department received 1.7 FTEs through the 2025 budget process, combined with 0.3 FTE that was approved through the 2024 budget process. The department has been able to add 2 new FTEs, which will help manage regional changes and enable a stronger and proactive approach to delivering economic development services in the community. Following the review of the region's economic development department, a review of the Small Business Center was initiated. The development of the Economic Development Plan 2025 to 2029 was paused in response to the review to ensure that the proposed strategic directions and subsequent action items considered services delivered at the regional level. In April 2025, a report was brought forward to Regional Council that included a recommendation to adopt a modified Halton Region model, which emphasized a stronger presence at the local level and addresses gaps in local support offered to businesses. The new model, which was developed in consultation with the local municipalities, aims to provide better connections to the local level for working through business challenges that are not the responsibility of the region, including bylaws, permitting, and municipal approvals. Following the presentation of the revised service delivery model, the Oakville Economic Development Department conducted a thorough review of the proposed economic development plan, strategic directions, and subsequent actions to make necessary changes to ensure alignment with the revised model. This included integrating the 4th strategic direction, titled Develop a Growth Plan for Small Business, under the 1st strategic direction, titled Support and Grow the Local Economy, which has a focus on working with partners such as the Small Business Center, Oakville's business improvement areas, the Oakville Public Library, and others such as Innovation Factory to support entrepreneurs and businesses locate, grow, and thrive in Oakville. This will be achieved through a coordinated effort that aims to avoid duplication and deliver a comprehensive package of services. This work brings us to where we are today, presenting the final economic development plan for the 2025 to 2029 period. The plan considers the complexities of today's economy and builds on and advances the current work of the department and identifies new areas of service delivery to ensure the economy remains competitive in the long term. All while showcasing why Oakville is a leader in innovation, driven by the town's competitiveness in technology and talent. With that, I'd like to introduce Sarah Lewis from Deloitte to present the final economic development plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milan. Your Worship, Council, Town Administration, and also those members of the public who are here today to observe and also participate in this process. We're so, I feel quite lucky to be here today to share the results of all of the work that has taken place to develop the economic development plan for the town of Oakville. Really, this is a moment where we gather all of the research that has been done, all of the engagement, all of the work to navigate the changes in regional services, to present to you a final plan ready for implementation to create a stronger and more innovative economy in Oakville. There we are. To present the plan, we'll go through some of the background, some of the key themes and ideas that came out of the research that developed the plan, as well as a bit of an economic update or a sense of what's happening right now in the global economy and how that might influence the implementation of Oakville's economic development plan. We'll review the research and highlights of engagement, then move on to cover the contents of the plan with you before discussing some performance measurement measures and how we move forward with implementation. So let's start with an overview. There we are. As many of you are very familiar with economic development and economic development planning, what we strive for as we develop an economic development plan is to prioritize and to understand what types of activities are most needed by the business community, given the state of the economy, given the nature of the ecosystem of different economic development organizations operating within the community, and aim to focus on particular sectors, desired types of investment, to ensure that the work that's done by economic development achieves the outcomes that Oakville is seeking, both in terms of the outcomes and the achievements of the business community, as well as council's goals. As we went through the process of developing the plan, a few themes emerged. And we'd just like to recall those today. First is that Oakville is really a thriving community with a very strong economic foundation. In fact, Oakville is a town with a renowned quality of life, has a robust economy, a vibrant cultural scene, heritage, a growing population, a population with very significant percentage, 80% holding post-secondary qualifications. And it's a home to anchor businesses and institutions like Siemens, Ford, and Sheridan College. Oakville has an innovative and competitive economy. Oakville has a very high concentration of businesses in professional fields, scientific, technical services, and healthcare. Proportionally, a very high presence of industry leadership within the community, and significant entrepreneurial skills within the workforce. The Economic Development Department has done quite a lot of work in understanding the regional dynamics of economic development and business support, and has navigated the transition of economic development services and is working on supports for small businesses as well in this new regional system. So we certainly see how Oakville is very well positioned to build the local economy through a number of these different aspects, and we'll build on them as we go through the presentation. So starting from a strong starting point, it's impossible to ignore that we live in a time where there are significant changes happening within the global economy and trade flows, and these stand to impact the business community in Oakville. These figures are from a recent forecast by Deloitte that model at a national level some of the impacts of the current tariff scenario on real GDP by industry. Right now, we're living in the base case, which is one where there is a CUSMA carve-out, which does protect a number of goods and industries from the full effects of potential tariffs that have been proposed or discussed. And these are in the green bars, if you're looking at it. There's certainly some areas of negative impacts, even in the base case. Specifically, of course, very much Council's very aware of the potential impacts on motor vehicles and parts. There are also some areas where, because of the global nature of tariffs, there are some areas of opportunity even within manufacturing, and this list is focused specifically on manufacturing. Of course, we also model a worst case scenario where that carve-out is not maintained, and that has much more severe impacts overall within manufacturing. But I think the main takeaway for this community is that Oakville is buffered to some extent by having a very diversified economy with strengths across a number of different sectors. So although, of course, we will be discussing and paying attention to the impact on motor vehicles and parts, there are other areas of the economy that, in the base case particularly, the main impacts are a sense of uncertainty and that the potential impacts of that and stalled business investment, that sort of thing. And we will cover where this is found within the Economic Development Plan and how the Economic Development Plan can mitigate against some of these factors. Let's take a look at key findings. We've talked a bit about growing population, growth in enterprise, the strengths of the educated workforce, diverse population as well, and growing diversity, technology and talent leadership. It's just important to note that Oakville scores highest in the Greater Toronto Horseshoe area in Deloitte's index, Creative Index, which measures levels of talent and also in terms of technology. Amongst all GTHA communities, which is really an impressive outcome and shows, again, that strength of talent and also of technology-oriented businesses in the community. As part of the analysis, we identified key business sectors, and so these are some of the areas to focus on to be able to build a strong economy in the community, specifically professional services, health and life sciences, film, ICT and digital media, and advanced manufacturing. We, of course, need to, beyond the facts and figures, engagement is a very critical piece of any economic development plan or strategy. And as you may recall, there have been quite a number of workshops, interviews, and also a survey that has been part of developing this economic development plan. In terms of workshops, town staff, town council, and also ecosystem organizations participated in workshops. We held a specific workshop for business interests, realtors, and developers to gain their perspective as well. And so there's certainly been fulsome engagement that has contributed to the direction of the economic development plan. We take all of the background research, the results of engagement, and put them together into what we call a SOAR analysis, which is a variation on a SWOT that looks at the aspirations of the community and uses that to build a plan for economic development. We can summarize the results here, of course, at a very high level. But we use the strengths and aspirations specifically to build a vision for economic development for the community. And here we can see the strengths of the workforce, a diverse economy, the quality of life and arts and culture that are part of Oakville, and local leadership and the quality of talent in the community as main strengths. The aspirations that we heard through engagement was the desire to have an innovative economy, to improvements in investment readiness, to build high-quality employment in high-skilled jobs, and then also to build a responsive local government. And you'll see all of these things as we go through the plan. Opportunities and risks are used to build the action items under the different strategic directions. And here we certainly saw attention to business attraction processes, how we market Oakville, attention to serviced property availability and suitability for economic investment, the importance of transit for a commuting workforce that is regionally tied, development timelines, and how the office and commercial real estate market will evolve. The results speak to what stakeholders are aiming to see from an economic development plan in terms of results. Now we'll get into the economic development plan itself. So first, the vision. And here you can recall the aspirations of the community and also the strengths that we've discussed in a few different areas. Oakville is a community where innovative companies want to be. If we can think of Oakville as a place where people want to live and where people also want to build a business and build a livelihood, this is one of the objectives that is ahead of us as this plan is implemented. The strategic directions, again, are three. The first is to support and grow the local economy. The second, to improve investment readiness. And the last, to attract new investment and jobs to Oakville. We'll go through each of these strategic directions and cover at a high level the actions. First, to support and grow the local economy. And this is, I believe, a highlight of the plan, is to develop and implement a business retention and expansion program. These programs really increase and improve the relationship between economic development staff and the business community, which support during a time of uncertainty such as we are facing. It means that staff are tightly tied to the businesses, and they're here first when there are concerns or there are common areas of challenge across the business community, and can be proactive in addressing those concerns. And this can support either building competitive advantage in the community in good times, good economic times, and also mitigating against losses in the community during more challenging times. The second action area is to work with ecosystem organizations to support small business. The third, to explore strategic partnerships, and this could be such as working with auto mayors to be able to mitigate against potential negative impacts in auto manufacturing, as well as working with Sheridan College to build out the strengths in ICT and digital, as well as bring innovative ideas and young talent into different aspects of the economy. Finally, to implement a CRM system to be able to tie all of this together and track engagement. The next area of the strategic plan is to improve investment readiness. Here, there is first this red carpet program, developing a memorandum of understanding with planning and development to be able to ease the process of achieving planning approvals, particularly in areas that have been identified as a priority through the economic development plan. There's the review and update of the Brownfield CIP, which of course is affected by the changes in regional services, and an increased involvement in policy development. And so this is ensuring that there's a voice, an economic development voice, in various decisions that may impact businesses in the community. Finally, developing a servicing employment land plan, which will address some of the risks identified in terms of the level of serviced employment lands available in the community. Finally, in terms of attracting new investment and jobs, as those fundamental relationships are built, the local business community is strengthened, and the building blocks or pieces of a strong investment readiness program are built, then we turn to how to attract new investment in the community. The first area of action here is to foster relationships with the real estate and development community. Of course, this is ongoing. It doesn't necessarily wait for the other strategic direction areas, but is an important foundational piece. The second action area is completing the 3-year film pilot program, which relates to the key sectors findings. The third is to explore potential purpose of FDI activities. And here, when it comes to foreign direct investment, research and preparation are key to success. And so this area carefully looks to what the areas of most opportunity are for Oakville before taking action. And finally, developing and implementing an investment attraction marketing plan. So I hope you can see through all of these different activity areas and strategic directions how the dynamics of Oakville's economy have been taken into consideration, and the plan developed is even more relevant, I would say, now than when Council first saw it. The imperative to develop the strength of economic development services, the foundations for investment readiness, and then to begin to carefully target investment attraction activities is never been more critical for Oakville's economy. Finally, what can Council expect moving forward? So there will be regular updates, the status of actions under the new economic development plan, reports on defined indicators and targets to show progress, and then also, of course, reporting on business engagement. And so along with the investment in business engagement activities, Council will also hear insight and findings from those engagements. So we've had a chance here to review the research and work that's gone into the economic development plan. We'd like to close by just pointing out really the strengths, but maybe in just a bit more tangible of a way. You can see on the screen images of innovative companies and also the great work of Generator at Sheridan and some of the leaders in Oakville's business community. Some of many, of course. And we aim to, through this economic development plan implementation, foster this growth and a supportive business environment, ensure that investing in Oakville is seamless, and that it's recognized as a talent hub. And that will lead to more success stories like those you see on the screen. Thank you so much, Council, for this summary of the economic development plan. I'm happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
And the lead-off questioner is, and the first two are, in fact, Ward 4 is Alan Elger and Peter Longo. Alan?
Thank you. Through you, Member Burton. Thanks for the presentation. Can you go back to slide 6, please?
Sure. Thank you.
Perfect. Now, did you say that's Canada, that's Deloitte did that Canada-wide?
Yes, correct.
And that, when was it done? Was it done after Trump came out with every tariff that he might do?
Yes, this is spring. This is from April.
So it's really it's quite up to date then?
Quite up to date, yes. We've been modeling and remodeling frequently.
Wow, it's pretty scary.
It's a significant impact specifically for the worst case scenario.
No, that to me, that slide says it all. That's a really good slide. And this is, we can get this online now?
Yes, yeah, it is the spring economic update. This data is available, although not necessarily the Oakville perspectives, of course, but the overall assessment is available.
No, it's good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that.
No, of course. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Longo.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not sure if this is for you, Sarah, or for Milan, but related to the risks of tariffs, I think the town's done an excellent job on bringing film to the town, but with Trump recently saying the 100% tariff on non-U.S. films, what impact could that have on our film industry coming here? Not sure who can answer that. And do you have that on the radar, and how are you going to try and mitigate that? So,
I can begin. Thank you, Councillor Longo, through you, Mayor Burton. I can begin with some sort of general observations about sector-specific impacts, and then I'm sure Milan and Rebecca would have some additional comments. So the important thing to remember, and of course, the estimates of the impacts of tariffs are significant, and we're all very aware of them and dealing with the uncertainty that they are creating. There's also, we're also unsure of what the future will bring. And so that is actually creating, as you can see in the base case, which is where we are living right now, right? We're not living in the worst case today. In Canada, we are living in the base case, where there are some areas of losses and concern, and then some actual areas of opportunity, just because of how tariffs are working globally. In some respects, can be areas of opportunity for Canada today. But what will next month bring? And I think that our economic modeling folks are really, at this point, observing that some of the greatest impacts are not necessarily what has been announced, but broadly speaking, the paralysis that creates in the economy, where there may be areas of opportunity, strength, growth, but these are perhaps paused because of concerns of what may or may not happen. And this, if anything, is it's important to note that the role of our role in cultivating areas of strength really remains, right? And that actually the courage to continue to cultivate those areas is something that we would certainly advise with all the appropriate cautions. But the staying still is actually one of the more dangerous courses of action in our view.
Through you, Mayor Burton. I'll just add to that. So we, as the Oakville Film Office, are part of a group of municipal Oakville Film offices that meets with the province on a regular basis. So this is one of the items of discussion at those. The province is, of course, taking the lead on this, but we're well connected in that area and monitoring it continuously.
well, I got to tell you, when I saw Alan Ritchin's signing, that Reacher was filmed in Oakville, I was like, one of my favorite shows. I was very happy to see that, but I know there's a lot more film that's being done here, so glad to see that you're kind of on it to try and mitigate any risks and still bring business to Oakville for the film industry, so thank you.
Speaking of the film industry, next we have Councillor Knoll, who has a couple of connections to that industry. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you for the presentation. I think you were involved in some Back to the Future gameplay downtown. I seem to remember you from that presentation. It was lots of fun, speaking of film. So I was going to talk about the fact that page 6 did not represent the film industry, because I guess that's a relatively new phenomena or a new threat that we're dealing with. But I just want to, since Peter already dealt with it, I just want to say this to the film crew in the Economic Development Office and to you, that I am aware through my many connections in the business that we have really impressed the film industry with our outreach and our cooperation. Oakville used to be a town where we ran away from location work and film work, and suddenly it's just evolved in the last few years. So well done to the whole team on that particular piece of the portfolio, because that's one I'm very well connected to, not necessarily the production side anymore, but certainly on the other side of the business. And we're monitoring that closely for impacts on my sector, which is the exhibition side of it. So good job to everybody, and I look forward to seeing what you can develop out of this, and hopefully these Trump tariffs don't decimate our film industry, and they have the very possibility of doing that, because the American film industry is really what drives all these jobs in Canada and makes it possible for Canadian films to be made as well, because of the bandwidth that's created as a result. So we're watching it. We're all watching it with bated breath. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor O'Meara.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much for the presentation. Just two questions. I was recently surprised to hear that Canada's GDP didn't take as much of a hit because we've begun to diversify, and we're looking to other partners, obviously not south of the border. So how does that impact us in our FDI strategy, and what are we doing now when we're talking about pharmaceuticals? We're talking about these to look outside of what would be our normal approaches. Are we going to have some trade teams that go to Siemens head office in Germany, start to like, how are we diversifying where we look to in order for our FDI approach?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Burton. I'll again start off with a few comments, and perhaps the team would have some additions. Some of the areas of economic development that can serve to buffer against the current situation are certainly business retention and expansion. And so this is building up to the discussion on FDI, but certainly business retention and expansion is a very important area. Understanding what the impacts are in terms of supply chain impacts for businesses, mitigating against, pauses in investment or other sort of challenges within the local business community. So some of those business retention and expansion activities are very critical. Also export development, so seeking out new trade relationships where there may be blocks or barriers. This is the type of work that the Economic Development Department does and would continue to do through the period of the plan. When it comes to foreign direct investment, certainly investment is one of those areas where the overall uncertainty within the economy is putting a chill on investment. We're hearing of paused projects and other sorts of impacts, related to that. It actually increases, I would say, the importance of strong research basis for FDI activities and also understanding what the changes in trade flows can mean for FDI opportunities. And as we saw in the base case scenario, there will be areas of opportunity and then also potentially some areas of limitation. So I know that those are broad comments, but would say that there are a few areas, both working with the existing business community as well as looking at investment attraction to get in place during such a time of uncertainty.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and I can just add on to that through you, Mayor Burton. So what's before you in the plan is a phased approach to foreign direct investment, and the first phase of that really is using some funds we received from the federal government in 2024 to do work around identifying what our target markets and sectors might look like if we were to pursue FDI activities in the future. And so from some of that preliminary work, it's identified that digital media and ICT could be an area of focus for the town. And so the next step is for staff to do formal FDI training to position ourselves appropriately to take on those initiatives if it comes to fruition. But also it prepares us well to attract investment locally within the province and within Canada as well. So many of those skills are transferable. And what we're also doing right now is building relationships with other organizations that operate in this space. For example, Invest Ontario, who through the Ontario budget that was tabled last week, was allocated $600 million to increase the Invest Ontario fund to provide the agency greater stability in executing its mandate to support job creation and investment attraction. So we work closely with those types of organizations in our current environment to attract investment to Oakville. And then the second phase of the FDI activities that are outlined in the plan would really be making a decision on how we're going to define our purpose, scope, and involvement moving forward in the medium to long term.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that. And I just have one smaller question. It was always a weird placement with the region's economic development team and the towns that the region was responsible for the small businesses and the single lower tier municipalities were responsible for catching the big fish. And it always seemed like it was a bit disjointed in how that placement should be. So I know that the region is keeping the small business center, but how has small business like BIAs and small businesses, how is that going to fit into our plan here of what the role is for the Economic Development Department?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I would just say that it is certainly part of the pillar on building the local economy and something that we heard clearly from Council through the engagement process. And so that's certainly been an important part of the Economic Development Plan. But perhaps, Milan, if you wanted to speak more specifically to the BIAs and chambers and such.
Through you, Mayor Burton. So the town's Economic Development Department is a part of the Oakville Partnership Committee, which is something that originally came out of the Mayor's Economic Task Force during COVID. It's evolved into the Oakville Partnership Committee that includes Halton Region, the town's 3 BIAs, Visit Oakville, and the Chamber of Commerce to provide services to all sizes of businesses in Oakville, but also have a coordinated effort with those organizations that have, a specific mandate to support small businesses. And I'll add that traditionally, our department has served medium to large size businesses in the community, but that role certainly evolved in recent years. Specifically, our department administers the patio program here in Oakville, and we've also sort of enhanced our collaborative relationship with other organizations like BIA's, the Small Business Center, to complement the services they are providing to businesses to ensure those businesses have the tools and resources to be set up for success.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Heslett-Thiel.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Burton. Thank you both for the presentation and the detail. I'm just going to go off a little bit of what where Councillor O'Meara was going with a slight twist. Can you talk to us about the impact and the opportunity with interprovincial trade barriers and the reduction of those, and in particular how we could benefit or any research that we should be putting in place to benefit from what is hopefully a sea change around how we work interprovincially?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Burton. Yes, the interprovincial trade barriers is certainly an important area where there's finally some attention. It's one where there's, I believe it is in the Outlook, but if not, I can find a source of information for Council based on Deloitte's projections of what the removal of interprovincial trade barriers could do for the Canadian economy. So I can provide some information on that point. There certainly is an opportunity there. And I believe most recently, Ontario and Manitoba have made an agreement to make substantial adjustments in their specific relationship. And there are other agreements and discussions happening, and I'm sure Council is aware of this. The opportunities will emerge as some of those agreements shift, and we see some of the specific areas of opportunity. And so it's an area to monitor. What I will say as also a counterpoint to the economic opportunity for local businesses to be able to sell into within Canada is that many of these interprovincial trade barriers are based in regulatory frameworks. They're quite embedded, and so it can be difficult to practically lower them. And so the time that it will take to accomplish this and the nature and the areas in which it will be possible to remove or reduce trade barriers will be variable depending on the different jurisdictions and may take some time to realize. With that said, it is a substantial opportunity. Would also say, so it would be a similar type of an approach to almost export development support from the perspective of the economic development team here, is how to encourage trade internally within Canada. And it's very much the same types of principles, in fact, to be able to accomplish those two things from a business perspective. But yes, a great point that you've raised, and certainly an area of opportunity to monitor, and it may be realized in quite specific areas as those negotiations between jurisdictions move forward.
So could I just ask if we look at slide 6, and I know it's not Oakville specific, but if on that chart, is there a way for you to highlight areas or how will our AcDev team know which of those areas to focus in on?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Burton. I would say that the answer for that within the context of the strategy itself is, I would say, you can see at the bottom of the slide, Oakville's key business sectors and sort of the connections there. So if the team is looking at where in advanced manufacturing, these are areas of strength for Oakville's economy, there are connections with some of the impacted industries. Those would be the areas to highlight. And certainly, and we've added some dots on the graph there to sort of proactively provide some direction on where some of those connections may be. But certainly the motor vehicles and parts is one that is intuitive and an important area for Oakville to focus on.
Okay, I'll leave that thread there. Thank you. My other question is around in the measurement, in the performance measurement, fully appreciate the data around growth in jobs, growth in businesses. Do we ever get data, and I may have missed it, so forgive me if I did, data that really asks the businesses about their personal assessment or their professional assessment on their economic health. Because we can attract people, to, you know, there are elements here that I get all tie together, but it also is, how do we know that those businesses are are thriving, to use our word, and that the support that we are providing is making a difference.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Barton. I'll again just make a few comments, and I'm sure that the team will have some more specifics. There are two areas I would say. Oh, there are a few activities within perhaps the business retention and expansion area that would be excellent areas to be able to address some of the points that you've raised. First is with a standard survey process which BRNE involves, there's actually a data collection component to business retention and expansion activities, which are incredibly valuable to understand where to target economic development activities and where the strengths and potential challenges that are being experienced by the business community might lie. So certainly that's a source of information that will be implemented through this plan, which is quite powerful. There also can be, I know that the economic development team has completed surveys. There's also surveying, and statistical surveying is another method of getting at some of the questions that you're asking.
Through you, Mayor Burton, just to briefly add to that. So there is opportunity through the development of the BRNE program, as Sarah mentioned, in terms of structuring how those business visits will be conducted and the questions that the businesses will be asked during those times. There's also an opportunity through the business condition survey that the region used to initiate. They will no longer be doing that, so we will be integrating that into the BRNE program to help gather some of that information, so we can take that back and do analysis.
All right, thank you for that additional information. And my last question is, in one of the action items, it talks about an MOU and about this ability for priority development. And so I'd just like to get some clarity around who's identifying it as a priority development and how are local councillors engaged in that process. So ECDEV may see it as a priority development. Who's defining that? And then how are we advised that that is a priority development and this is work that is being done to bring that business to fruition, and where?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Mayor Burton. I will just set the stage for the response by indicating or sharing a bit about where this came from. So certainly one of the strong themes that we heard both from the business community and also from the council discussion and engagement was a desire to ensure that when businesses come forward that there is a smooth process and a transparent process of working with the town. And so that's where this activity area came from and is designed to establish a bit of a red carpet or a strategic development process where there's some coordination internally that is structurally built. And then as far as the areas of priority, the extent to which the strategy touches on that are suggestions as far as key sectors and then overall sort of the focus on different types of businesses in terms of the value of the employment that would be generated to the overall economy. And then with that, I know Milan has more detail.
Through you, Mayor Burton. So the development of the MOU is obviously in its infancy in terms of us bringing this plan forward to council. We will be looking at different pieces of criteria with the directors within the Community Development Commission to understand how those priority developments may best be identified. And certainly once we have a better understanding of what that might look like, at that point, there may be an opportunity to share that with council and how the MOU is taking shape.
Okay, so my follow-up to that is you've identified, two categories that I know off the top of my head, where life sciences, health services, professional services. We know that those are the kind of top talent, knowledgeable workforce that enjoys Oakville, and we could attract even more. I guess I just want to plant the seed that there are other interests coming into Oakville that may or may not line up with that. And as councillors, we're often the last people to know that, hey, this is going to pop up in my area. I don't have much in industrial land left, thank God. But because I don't need more warehouses, thanks very much. But Midtown, as an example, understanding how are we, using the opportunity there to say, you may only have to drive to the train or take the bus to the train, not go any further. I'd just like to understand that we're going to be looped into that before deals are signed or things are being expedited, that we have an awareness of where that strategy is taking us.
Let me field this and give the councillor the reassurance that she needs. No MOU would be in force or effect until council had approved it. So I think you can rest easy.
Okay, well, thank you for that assurance, Mayor Burton. Thanks very much for your patience with my questions.
Not a problem. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Worship. This is directed to staff in the economic development. I guess where I'm looking at, we've touched on it in the past with BIAs, the development of BIAs. Do we have a process with respect to engagement of a new fledgling BIA in different parts of the town? I know we got 3 strong ones, but I know we've touched on this, but I don't see anything in the report where we would be engagement or proactive with those wards or those areas where there could be a maturity of businesses to start developing a BIA. So is it within the plan to start those engagements or have some criteria or warrants or to identify the possible of new BIAs coming online?
Through you, Mayor Burton. As far as I'm aware, I don't know of a specific process that would happen in that case. In a new BIA, that's not part of the economic development plan specifically. One of the things that we did identify was in 2027, I believe, taking a look at the existing MOUs with the BIAs. And so I suppose there's some things that we could learn from that, but I don't know exactly what the specifics would be for starting a new BIA, and it's not outlined in this plan. But that's not to say that it's not something that staff could look at.
Could that be a consideration in moving forward to have some counselors, we have an idea, because right now I wouldn't even know where the engagement because you're using engagement and throughout this process, and I think it's an area that needs to be looked at with our developments in North Oakville. So put that in your basket, and hopefully will come some process or criteria in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giddings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, further to Councillor Janet's question or mention of warehousing. Any sense with what's going on interprovincially as well as to the south of us, are we maxed out? Is there a pause going on? Can we expect as the areas perhaps closer to the airport or the 401 get filled, more coming our way? Is any indexes or crystal balls on that one?
Through you, Mayor Burton. An excellent question, Councillor. The research undertaken to develop the plan didn't go so far as to look at the employment lands forecast regionally and to understand what some of those trends might entail. Certainly, they could be influenced by some of the most recent tariff and trade adjustments. There will be shifts in trade patterns and demand for different types of land development in response. This is something that we would typically look at in an employment land study or forecast. So perhaps if the economic development team has anything further on that type of activity, but it is quite a specific analysis that needs to be done to really understand those drivers.
I appreciate the process of tracking demand. At any given time, there's X percentage of square feet or square meters available. Just wondering, is that an art or a science?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I would say it is, I would categorize it as a science from like a planning profession standpoint. That there's certainly, it's quite a rigorous process, I would say, as far as the planning profession and understanding what those different trends look like and trying to grasp as best as possible the direction of investment and what the regional trends are as well. So it's, but it certainly is, I would say, a very specific process undertaken by those planning professionals to be able to comment on the trends and exactly how the employment lands in relation to warehousing or other types of uses would play out. So that's what I have.
Great stuff, thank you.
Thank you for your brave forecast. Thank you, Councillor Giddings. Councillor Knoll.
Thank you, Worship. And I got so excited talking about film, I forgot my general question. So having read this plan and having read plans for many years in the past, I'm curious as to what's evolved between the plans in terms of identifying, I guess, how the big fish got away and how we've mitigated those issues going forward with a new plan. So what in the last plan, the execution of the last plan, did we discover were the challenges that existed, why we couldn't land some of the deals that we were looking for, and how have we worked towards mitigation in this plan?
Through you, Mayor Burton. Excellent question, Councillor Knoll. I would say one of the points that comes to mind that certainly was a point of discussion between the planning periods is just the longer term trends in terms of service land availability, and that as being a potential challenge moving forward. So with certainly if there's, and then also one of the other areas where I would point to that is intended to mitigate against challenges is being able to share information online with the land inventory to make that information more accessible and available, which just speeds the ability of potential investors to be able to review what is available. So those are two points I would pull forward.
And how are you dealing with the second part, the technological part? I see the implementation or the potential implementation of a CRM software package to help mitigate, I guess, the lead management. But how are you dealing with that piece, the land availability database?
Yeah, so there are two different action areas related to investment readiness. One is developing a plan for service land to ensure that there's sufficient service land, and it's more in the medium to longer term. There's other work that needs to be done to build up to that. And the second is having an inventory that's available online, and that came through some of the engagement workshops and discussions as being a leading practice and one that would accelerate development in the community.
Are you finding a lot of cooperation, or I mean, this is probably just more to staff, are you finding a lot of cooperation amongst the real estate agents that focus on commercial real estate in terms of working with the department in these areas? I know that many, many years ago, that was a challenge. I haven't heard if that's been mitigated since. They often have their own marketing tools and don't often want to necessarily share their toys, so to speak. So have we seen an uptick in that kind of cooperation and understanding?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Burton. One thing I can say is that the engagement in the session with realtors and developers was excellent. There was very good attendance. The engagement and the comments were free-flowing, and there seemed to be good relationships from my perspective.
Excellent.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Burton, we have positive relationships with the industrial and commercial real estate community, as well as developers within the community. We engage with them on a regular basis. They are able to share data with us specific to the Oakville market to enhance our understanding of trends. So it's a very collaborative relationship that we have with that community as it stands right now, and we continue to work with them to see, to understand the type of investment they're seeing come into the community in all different types of spaces across Oakville. So we continue to foster those relationships, and that's identified as one of the priorities in the plan, is to continue to foster and develop those relationships. And that will be something also that's included through the BRNE program. Part of the engagement through that is to continue to engage with realtors and developers to maintain those relationships.
That's excellent. The last question I have is with respect to those businesses and such. Are we able to deliver on the needs that they have in order to do a better job or to do a good job of marketing our community? Are they getting enough support from your office? Do you have enough resources to be able to achieve those goals, to be able to support those outside agencies, to be able to, I guess, act as agents or act as good ambassadors for our community?
Through you, Mayor Burton. In terms of resourcing within the department, as I noted in my opening remarks, we have recently been able to add 2 additional full-time employees to help serve some of those areas and to provide enhanced and more comprehensive services. And so with those additional resources, we're able to continue doing the work, the existing work of the department, and also building on and looking at new areas and how we can provide enhanced services to businesses. So we have more resources, engaging with the business community, promoting the incredible innovation and work that's happening here. One example of that is we have increased our presence, our digital presence through social media, and promoting what's happening in the community. And that's just one of the ways that is, contributes to investment attraction and showcasing what's happening in the community. And I would say it's just sort of the tip of the iceberg in terms of when we get into the investment attraction marketing plan and taking that more formalized strategic approach to attracting investment to the community, and also ensuring the existing businesses have the support they need through different programs and tools within the community to ensure they're able to grow and thrive here in Oakville.
That's great. You guys do a fantastic job. Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. And back to Councillor Hazardale.
Thank you. I just have one follow-up on the BIA piece, and it's related to the real estate. So one of the challenges that a business district has is the relationship with landlords and the real estate agents. And we often end up with something that might be in a vacant space that you go, really? Really? Like, we needed something different. And Mayor Burton's got a longer history, and Councillor Giddings with BIAs, but it is a constant worry that where our vacancy rate in downtown is incredibly low now. But when something comes in, it needs to fit, and it needs to be, we need to draw in the right fit. Is there an opportunity for ECDEV to help us with that?
Through you, Mayor Burton, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. In terms of the parameters of investment attraction within the plan, would say that what you're outlining is probably one of the most challenging scenarios to influence, where the decision as far as what business goes into a retail space is really controlled by the landlord. And so it can be difficult to have an influence. Where there may be, where I might counsel, broadly speaking, in this area, would be that positive actions to aim to attract and identify the types of businesses that the community was most suitable for a particular area is something that strong BIA support, in being able to cultivate relationships and build a strong brand for a neighborhood. These are things that really can contribute to helping with some of those areas. And then in terms of business retention and expansion, not to bring it up again, but connecting with those landlords as part of a broad engagement exercise is probably the most that can be done. But it's quite a challenging area to influence, just again, because the decision is in the hands of other parties.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm up for a big challenge. Rebecca, are you able to help us?
Through you, Mayor Burton, I don't have much to add to that. That was really what I was going to say. It can be a difficult area for us to influence, but I will say that now that we have additional resources in the department, we do have a staff person sort of assigned to each BIA so that they can get to know the BIAs more specifically, understand what the needs and the trends are in those areas. So hope that through that work and sort of a partnership between the BIAs and our department, perhaps there's some movement we can make there, but I can't guarantee anything specific.
Well, we know you'll help when you can. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Lischina.
Thank you, Your Worship. Great presentation. Rebecca, this is probably a question for you because you've been there. for a while. With respect to the CRM, I believe we've had this discussion for a number of years. It's saying it's in the short term, but it seems like it's been short term for a number of years. Could you just speak to that a little bit more based on what's changed, that it's going to be different this time versus prior, having that priority there?
Certainly, through you, Mayor Burton. So we have identified it, as you say, in the past. What we initially did was work with our internal ITS team to build a solution on through SharePoint, which we have been utilizing for the last few years, but we're finding it doesn't provide really what we need in terms of being able to track all of the data that we would like to be able to track and to make those connections as we build out our BRNE program and we get more data on businesses and that, we need to have a system that can integrate it a little bit more. Like right now we use SharePoint, we use Excel files, we use folders in a drive, like it's just kind of all over the place. So we're looking to be able to streamline into one place. And the solution from ITS, it worked for a few years, but we're finding we need something a bit more sophisticated.
Okay, thank you. I thought something was happening there, but doesn't seem to be the right one. Okay.
I guess the best face we can put on that is they outgrew it, and this is all about fostering growth, so maybe that's good. Thank you very much for the information and for fielding all the questions from council. I would like to ask the clerk to call the registered delegation now, and I thank them for their patience.
Emmanuel Adebola.
Welcome, Mr. Abadola. We look forward to your information.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Distinguished councillors, nice to be here. My name is Emmanuel Adebola. I'm a business consultant, and I'm also a resident of Halton region, and I'm very appreciative of the effort that the economic development team has taken in this direction, because I've followed this development with very keen interest to understand how it's going to be beneficial. As we know, there are three aspects to economic development: investment attraction, business retention and expansion, and small business. And it is my belief, like it was suggested by Councillor Omer, that all three should have actually been decentralized, as you know, as against what happens today. But I believe we're on the journey. And I say this because I have oversight not just for Halton, but for other regions. And I've seen that the ability to bring that into the municipal level makes for a more effective approach for the municipalities in the long term. I did a research late last year, and based on my assessment, Oakville was doing very well in terms of maturity for the economic development, only second to Burlington, if I might be very blunt about it. But with what I've seen with this development, it actually provides a level playing ground for every of the municipalities to work effectively. There was a note about marketing. Marketing is one area that I believe is very strong in ensuring that there's enough information about the developments that are taking place, and also there's a better rapport with the business community, which I represent. Apart from being a business consultant, I founded an organization called ANA Global. ANA Global is one of the fastest growing social enterprises for peoples of African and Caribbean descent. And we have lots of businesses here, resident in Oakville, who are very much interested in engaging more with the community. So I'm excited at what is about to happen, and I believe that we're trending in the right direction. Unlike many people, I believe that the recent events in the south of the border are actually to advantage, because I believe that for too long, Canada has been a sleeping giant waiting to be kicked out. And I think that right now we have enough motivation to make this happen. A lot of things that I plan to say have been well articulated by the consulting team, but I think beyond what we're doing internally, what I want to recommend is that we also look beyond Oakville to see what is working and hopefully leverage it. For example, investment attraction. I know for a fact that a municipality just not far from here has made the effort to hire investment attraction coordinators that focus not just internally, but also at other markets. And I speak specifically about the city or town of Brampton, which has an investment coordination attraction for Africa and the Caribbean market, and also for Europe and some other places. I think that's a step in the right direction. Secondly, somebody mentioned something along the lines of interprovincial barriers. I think we're only shooting ourselves in the foot if we continue to haggle over the things that really hinder us. The response to that from the consultant was that there are regulatory barriers that can hinder us, but I think the more we speak about it, I'm even hoping that there's more pressure on us from the south of the border to actually force us to actually harness what we already have. Canada can be self-sufficient. Canada has the resources, we have the opportunities, and I'm hoping that similar to how Mayor Burton often uses the story of when Ford came to explain how, Oakville benefited from that. There could be many more success stories from other industries that are opening up. I've looked at the 4 or 5 areas that Oakville is concentrated on: advanced manufacturing, professional services, ICT, digital media, and the last one, health and life sciences. And I think that's a fantastic start. You have one of the best institutions across the road in Sheridan College, which has a program for the film industry. And I know that there's a lot of reliance on Hollywood. That has been mentioned today. But I also make to say that there are other industries beyond Hollywood that will be great partnerships if you actually cultivate it and take when I say I'm talking about Oakville, but to a large extent, Canada takes the leadership to actually, make this a welcoming environment for places like India and places like the Nollywood industry that's also thriving very well. And I think that with this done, it can only get better. There are many people who are looking forward to this, to the outcomes of this, and I believe that with what I've seen with the economic development team, it's only going to go from good to better. I want to say that the organization I lead and I work with has benefited immensely from a wonderful rapport with the mayor, and as well as the economic development team led by Rebecca, and particularly Milan has been very supportive in looking at ideas in which we can work together, and I want to encourage more of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. I will say that my many contacts with our growing population from Nigeria have impressed me with the entrepreneurial streak in every other Nigerian that I meet. So I'm expecting a lot from that energy for our future. Thanks very much for coming.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everyone.
All right, Council, before I ask you for the vote to adopt and use this to guide departmental planning and operations for the next 5 years, I thought I would just mention that foreign direct investment is, in my experience, best done in cooperation with the province of Ontario and/or the federal government, sometimes together and sometimes separately. And I have received inquiries from individuals who now live here, but with significant ties back to India, Singapore, South America, and even China, suggesting that the doors are open for us. I would say that the latest from China has been, at the highest level, I would call it soft inquiries to see whether relations are ready to be improved yet. There having been some unpleasantness between our two countries involving a couple of guys named Michael that everyone may remember. And that put a chill on our relations with developments from China. So we'll have to see how that goes. On the question of interprovincial trade, about a week ago, the Premier came to the quarterly meeting of the auto mayors, and he gave a speech in which he stressed how optimistic he is, how full of potential it is to lower the interprovincial trade barriers, and how grateful he was that Premier Houston agreed. And the state of play he summed up as, "I'm very optimistic that we'll make headway with the other 8 premiers." So it's a work in progress on that front. And that's all the extra news I have for you on this score. Would 2 of you like to move and second the indicated motion? Councillor Hazlitt-Deal and Councillor Grant, thank you. Any objection? There being none, that is carried. Is there any new business or requests for report? Is there a mover and seconder for the reading and consideration and reading of the confirmatory bylaw? Councillor Chisholm and Councillor Lischina. Thank you. Any objection? There is no objection. That's carried. That ends our work. It's been terrific working with you. And we have a late breaking hand from Councillor Duddick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did want to pass along some condolences that were as a result of, sadly, we lost a dear member of the Oakville community with the recent passing of Jamie McCrae. And Jamie's deep appreciation for Oakville's history led to a steadfast commitment to conserving its architectural and natural heritage. Alongside Jane, his partner in crime, he championed volunteer service and community engagement in many areas. The town of Oakville recognized that service and awarded him its Community Spirit Award. When Jane and Jamie restored their 1831 home in Old Oakville in 1997, it was, as Jane said, a true coming home moment. There's no doubt that Jamie has made a lasting contribution to the Oakville community, and I know I speak for many of us who had the privilege to work alongside him on the Oakville Heritage Committee. He will be dearly missed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Duddick, and so say we all. Thank you, everybody. That is the end of the meeting. Good night.